So these are two of my favorite founders in the world. I'm lucky enough to be an early investor in charity because I'm a genius, and I'm unlucky enough not to be an early investor in Christine because I'm a fool. And that is the life of a VC. Would you two like to introduce yourselves just briefly?
For sure. Rachel's also one of my favorite people in the world. I am Christine Spang. I'm the founder and CEO at Nihilus. I'm really glad I got that right because that's only been my job for 9 months. If you aren't familiar with Nihilus, we are a unified API for connecting to any email inbox, calendar, or meeting provider in the world. So if you need any of that, check us out.
Who else here has been lucky enough to be yelled at by Rachel because they were wrong about something? Nice. I'm not alone.
I can yell on request.
That's true. And Spang and I once shared a block. You guys were the first paying customers of Honeycomb.
Yeah, that's right. We cut you guys your first check.
It's a pretty embarrassing story. We probably shouldn't tell it. My name is Charity Majors, co-founder and CTO of Honeycomb. We do observability, sort of next generation observability. I could talk at you for a very long time, but we're not here to talk about that. So,
how did the two of you get drawn into or fall into the founder role? You're both from pretty non-traditional backgrounds. What advice do you have for people at the beginning?
Spang grew up hacking Linux kernel drivers.
Shh. That's why it's embarrassing that I'm a CEO now. I guess I can start. It's funny because I went to college to study computer science. I went to MIT, and the reason I went to MIT was because I got into working on Linux when I was in high school. And so all the time that I was in MIT, I was like, I'm going to do this Linux thing. I love Linux. And I kind of got psyoped into getting into startups because I just happened to make some friends at school that did Linux stuff as a startup, and they were like the only startup that was coming out of MIT 15 years ago. And yeah, it was called K-Splice, did this kernel engineering stuff. And I happen to know the guys who started it, and so I ended up working there part-time when I was in school. And instead of sticking around and doing a master's degree, I just got a job. I just seemed like a better idea to get paid to work on Linux kernels than to pay somebody else to work on Linux kernels. And that's really how I got into business.
Yeah, total weird stroke of fluke, fate, whatever. Vowels. I was always an ops engineer. I was a music major. I was a piano major. I grew up in Idaho, and I got to college and realized everyone in the music department was very poor. They were in their 30s or 40s, 50s, still hanging around doing music in their spare time. I was just like, I grew up poor. I'm not going to be poor as an adult. And so I switched to computers. And, there was this beautiful moment in time when anybody, poor kids who were willing to work hard and sleep under their desk, anyone could get into tech. That's when I got into tech. That is not the world we have anymore. But that's how I got here. But I've always loved, I'm kind of a professional cynic. I work really well as an SRE because anytime you tell me about your great technology, I'm like, here's how it's going to fail. This is going to break, which it's a type. And it worked really well for me. I have no pedigree. I've never graduated from anything. And when I was leaving, I was at a startup called Parse, got acquired by Facebook. When I was leaving Facebook for the first time in my life, some folks were kind of like, would you like some money to start? And I'm just like, well, on behalf of all women, queer people, and dropouts everywhere, I accept.
So when you were just starting out, when we were having drinks in the elbow room on Valencia, how did you figure out who was going to be CEO, who was going to be CTO? Because, eventually you both ended up switching those roles.
Here's the thing. VCs only care about who is CEO. They don't give a shit about anything else. They want there to be one point of contact that they can pretend represents the entire company so that they can ignore everyone else. That's really the only thing that matters. And the honest ones will tell you this.
Yeah, for me, there was never really a question or an argument. I was the hacker in the corner building the product, and Actually, I didn't have a title at first, but eventually just like other people on the team started calling me the CTO, and that's how I got my title.
And then when the big switch happened from CEO to CTO, in your case, Charity, and the reverse in your case, Christine, how did that play out?
Oh, well, the board fired me because I was really bad at it. And true story. I was really bad at it. I didn't know I had ADHD. I am the opposite of a structured person, right? Turns out you actually really want a structured person as a CEO. I was really bad at it, and like there was something there enough to keep giving us money, but so they fired me. Christine and I swapped places. It was really rough for a while. Like it was emotionally really brutal. I actually never wanted to be CEO, so I was kind of like, why didn't you just have a conversation with me? Because I didn't want this job actually, and said you had to fire me, but capitalism does capitalism things. So it was really hard. Honestly, I have put more work into my relationship with my co-founder than anyone else on this planet, and I've been married. It takes a lot of work, but now like we've gotten to the point where like we're good at opposite things, you know? She knows what she's good at. I know what I'm good at. We can cooperate. We are greater than the sum of our parts. It was not easy.
Yeah. I didn't ask to be CEO either, but I built the company up for many years with someone who's still very treasured to me, and being CEO for like 7+ years is like fucking hard. Oh my God. And he needed a break, and he kind of hit his breaking point last year, and he really needed a break. So he's actually building a house in the desert right now. And I agreed to take on the CEO hat.
What was the moment at which you realized, oh my God, I'm actually running this thing? Was there like an epiphany?
Like as either role?
Yeah.
Oh.
All right. I would say there was a process, there came a point where over the first 3, 4, 5 years where I didn't feel like I had changed, but information stopped coming to me. And I feel like, so as someone who presents fairly feminine, I feel like I'm pretty non-threatening, you know? And like people have just been willing to tell me things my entire career. And there came a point when people stopped telling me things. And I really had to learn that, oh, it's my responsibility to make sure that I get the information that I need. I'm gonna have to pull it out, I have to ask, I have to make it safe, I have to like create an environment, I have to make sure they know I want to hear it. I didn't have these skills because I'd never had to like drag it out of people, but people relate to you differently when they perceive you to have more power.
I was 24 when I started this company, and the first story that I can remember about this, where I really thought about it, was when we kind of got past like 10 or so engineers on the team, and like suddenly stuff like just started like not flowing as well. We're like, maybe we need to like have some organization or something like that. And I racked my brain trying to think of like the oldest friends that I had who were like in their low 30s.
30s? Oh my
like
God.
31. And like find somebody who had been an engineering manager who could like tell me like, what do you do when like stuff just doesn't work anymore? And so I like tracked down this friend. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I got like 3 book recommendations from him to like just get like a crash course in like how to do like line management for engineering.
Do you remember what the books were?
I remember one of them was called Slack, and I can't remember what the author is, but it was about like not like trying to schedule every single minute of your team's time because it doesn't work.
Nowadays, I would tell everyone to read Will Larson.
Oh, and the second one I just remembered is a book called Becoming a Technical Leader by Jerry Weinberg. And I also ended up taking his class when he was still alive, and it was awesome.
Yeah, management is an art and a craft, and it can be taught. What do you think people misunderstand the most about early stage leadership in technical companies?
I feel like there's this cult of the founder. And YC, I'm not a fan of YC because I feel like they really cultivate this cult. They're just like, oh God, founders are so different from everyone else. And it's just, It's just not true. It's not true. It shouldn't be true. Well, they make a lot more money than everyone else does if you're successful. But like, honestly, in the early days, you're all down in the muck together building shit. And the biggest, almost every startup fails, right? Something like 98% of startups fail, like some ridiculous number. And so like, this is a survival exercise, and there's really no room for ego in that, I feel. But I do feel like there's the press and the YC and having been on the other side of this, like I was at a post-YC startup, Parse. And I felt like those founders were coached to not tell us the truth. And when I look back on my time, I was the infrastructure lead, right? And I'm just like, I could have done such a better job for them if they had just told me what the fuck was going on.
In the beginning, even when I started managing the team, I thought that I still had to be the best at everything. I still had to know the entire code base, and I had to know how everything worked. And the only way that people would respect me is if I were better than them. And that's not true. It turns out that people need clarity on like what their role is and what they're supposed to be doing, and they also need to understand how they contribute to the bigger picture of what you're trying to accomplish, and they need to be listened to and to feel seen by the people that they are working for and with, and none of those things have anything to do with computers. And if you try to do all of that on top of being the best engineer at the company, it's not possible.
It's not possible. I've also seen so many people who became founders or became engineering leaders, and they try so hard to not fail people in the way that they were failed, which is a good thing, but they overcorrect, right? There is no, if you're working at an early stage startup, which is what the question was about, right? It's risky. You can't protect people from that risk. And the best you can do is be straightforward with them that we're doing this risky thing together, and we'll do our best to get through it together. And clear is kind. The most unkind thing you can do is not tell someone when they're fucking up and just kind of like string them along or kind of give them mealy mouse answers, So many people, when trying to be kind, actually just like muddy the waters, and it's not kind.
When did you first recognize that your habits and your actions and your behavior shaped the company culture? Were they shaping the kind of culture that you wanted? Did you have to change?
I mean, for me, I had real bad sleep problems. Like, I didn't know I had I've struggled my entire adult life with irregular sleep. And medication is great. Better living through chemistry is what I am all about. But it's not just what you say you care about. It's also how you behave. And if you're just like strung out and at the office at all hours, nobody can chill. Nobody can relax. And I think a lot of people, they become adults and then they become parents and then they learn about how the things that they do actually affect all these people. And I don't really like to use this metaphor because I think it's a little bit, it's a little demeaning or something, but like I feel like that process for me with startups, just realizing how attuned people are to the behavior and the practices of the people above. We're monkeys, right? And we're very attuned to hierarchy, and it reflected my bad habits back to me in a way that I did not find complimentary, and so I had to change them.
So what did you do?
I got a therapist. I got medicated. I read a lot of books. I wrote a lot of blog posts. Some of you may have read some of my. I've learned that I figure out my staunchest convictions. I learn them by writing. Often I start writing something, I'm just like, well, that doesn't actually make any sense, does it? I don't know that I can stand behind this. When you see it in front of you, it's a lot starker. And I feel like a lot of the convictions that I have in my life, I've gotten to because I started writing about them, and I got someplace that was like, oh yeah, I believe this.
One thing that I noticed was that when I showed up to work in a bad mood or cranky, like people started worrying about the company. They're like, is something wrong? Like, are our investors mad at us? Are we going to run out of money? Like, what's happening? And it was like really kind of stressful and shocking to realize that like people were like reading all sorts of like crazy things into like just like having a bad day. And I think that really just painted this picture of like how powerful you are as a founder. Like people just, we're all like highly mimetic creatures, and like we like kind of copy what is around us and what we see from like the people who are in leadership positions. And I learned that taking care of yourself is a part of taking care of the company. Because when you like show up and like you're not in a good state, like everybody fucking can tell. And it stresses them out, and people get less work done when they're worried about whatever is going on with you. And so it was really important for me to like learn, like just self-explore, like what do I need in order to like show up with like my best self for my team and for my company. Because if I didn't do that, then it's kind of just like wasting my time. I might as well just like take a sick day.
Yeah, I firmly believe that self-awareness is like the cornerstone of all other virtues. If you don't know yourself and understand yourself, if you can't diagnose or debug when you yourself are in crisis or in pain or frustrated or whatever, like everything else is performative. If you can't connect it to what's actually going on.
How do you make use of coaching and therapy to achieve that state of self-knowledge?
Nothing lasts forever. Like you have to keep trying different things, right? Something will work for 3 months or 4 months or 6 months or maybe a year, and then you have to find something new. Because, I mean, if you're lucky enough to survive, you have a constant, steady stream of new problems coming in.
Yeah, for me, I think there's like a few different things that were really impactful for me. I personally never found that like having like a personal therapist really like helped me at work. Like, you know, if I had like a relationship problem, yeah, I like went and saw a therapist for that. But like,
did you ever do co-founder coaching?
Yeah. So I was gonna say that like there's just like a lot of stuff around being a startup founder that is like very specialized, and like talking to somebody who like doesn't have any experience with this particular thing that we're all doing here, you just end up having to like download a lot of context. And the great thing is that there's this actually pretty big ecosystem at this point of like coaches who have specific experience working with people who are building startups and companies. And you can just find one of those and interview some. It's just like hiring any other role where you got to find somebody who works for you. And me and my co-founder actually jointly hired an executive coach for both of us, who we saw for a year.
They're also expensive. It will make you gag. But remember, your VCs are paying for it.
Yeah, it seemed like an insane amount of money. I'm like, there's no way that this is like a good use of money, but it was so worth it. Like one, you know, like Charity mentioned, like your co-founder is like the person you're going to be spending like more hours of your life with than anybody else.
I don't know how anyone does this shit without a co-founder, honestly. Even the bad ones are better than nothing.
Yeah, so like you're in the boat, you're rowing, you're bailing, there's all sorts of shit happening, and
your partner doesn't want to hear about it.
Yeah, they have no fucking idea what it's like. And having a coach that both me and my co-founder had, both helped us be more self-aware about ourselves, but also really helped us like get to know each other a lot better and develop like a really kind of high bandwidth communication and trust. Because as I mentioned before, like we both started the company when we were like pretty young, and you grow up a lot. You need to grow up a lot as a part of growing a business. And executive coaching, if you find somebody who's actually good, can really help you with that.
Yeah, but don't fire fast. A lot of these fuckers can just talk and talk and talk and talk. And if you're not getting along after a session or two, you're not going to get along after that.
If there's somebody who's going to be helpful for you, you'll know. And one thing that is going to help you in all sorts of ways in building a company is like learning to trust yourself and to trust your gut. Because there's a lot of information in your body that's like, it's not verbal, but like if it's the right next step, you're gonna know.
That is so true. I'm so glad you said that. You can tell when you're talking to someone, but you're actually talking to the last person that they were impressed with. Right? You know that, like, you're talking to someone, you're like, oh, you just talked to so-and-so, right? Like, honestly, I think for Christine, my co-founder, and myself, getting to a point where, like, you could trust that each other was synthesizing and reacting with something that they could stand behind was like, it sounds so small, but it's can you rely on someone's gut or not is a pretty big deal.
What's a blind spot that you discovered coming out of being a technical IC and moving into leadership?
Business.
Say more.
I didn't actually know the difference between sales and marketing when I started a company. I had not spent my whole career going, I want to be a founder when I grow. Like, that just wasn't actually, it was a total, like, on a whim. No one is more surprised than I am that it's almost 10 years on and we're still doing this. I can't believe it. Didn't know. Like, I spent all this time trying to figure out how to talk about observability and how it was different from turns out what we were doing was called category creation. I was not aware I didn't know categories existed, actually. So there was a lot of, business was my blind spot.
I really identify with that. I mean, for me, it was a little different because my co-founder was non-technical, and he ran all of sales and marketing for like 8 years. And when I had to jump in and do that, I had just been treating sales and marketing as like magic for that entire time. Like, that's not my department. Like, I have somebody really competent who knows about this stuff, who's in charge of that. And I just kind of like put it in this box off to the side as like, I'm not thinking about that. And like, that's not what I'm good at. And actually, I've been really having a lot of fun this last year because sales and marketing aren't magic. Sales and marketing are systems. They have concepts that can be broken down. They're understandable. And once I found like the right people and resources to like download that into my engineering brain, I was just like, oh, I don't have to like be scared of this or like say like that's something that like I don't understand and don't know how to do because you can do anything.
Giving yourself permission to understand something is such a game changer. And we see the reverse all the time, right? We see people on the sales and marketing side who don't give themselves permission to understand engineering. The difference between a metric, a log line, and a trace, not that complicated, right? You can understand it if you give yourself permission to understand it. And I think the same goes in reverse. Like, sales, marketing, they're systems problems, right? We can understand them, we can get better at them.
Yeah, that's super funny because like I had a sales leader once who like gave an example of a previous company he'd worked at where the founder there told them to like build an app with the like framework as a part of their onboarding, and he was like, I'm not gonna do that. And it's really a lot about your mindset. If you're just like open to learning new things, like they don't have to be so intimidating.
Honestly, one of my favorite things to do in interviews for senior leaders is when they start talking me through how they would solve a hard problem. And it's like, oh, gosh, that sounds like how an engineer would. Oh, so you diagnose it, you look for options, you try this, you try that. And it's that systematic thinking.
So what was the hardest part about switching between the CTO, CEO roles when you did it? What was the low point?
Honestly, for me, becoming CEO, which we had a third founder in the beginning who was supposed to be CEO. That was the game plan, and so I never planned on it. The ego death of letting go of being someone who contributed hands-on every day. I had nightmares for nobody's ever going to hire me again. I'm going to get written out of the technical story of the company. I really did not want to be CEO. And I'm sure in my mind I made it up to be a much bigger deal. But like, I couldn't contribute every day because, as Rachel referenced earlier, our only marketing strategy was anywhere that will let Charity come talk about this shit, let her go talk. So I was constantly flying around the world and just like giving little talks. Couldn't contribute. And I hadn't really grappled with just how much of my identity, my sense of self, was tied up in, I am a valuable human being because I am really good at software, And it sounds It sounds really silly when you say it out loud, but there was some psychological damage. It was hard.
It's funny you say that because I have like a little bit of a different twist on it for me in that when I was sort of thrust into the CEO role, I looked around me and I like just didn't see anybody like me who was a CEO. And I was like, I had this stereotype in my mind of like a CEO equals a person like my co-founder. And it probably took me maybe like 3 months to kind of like go through this like crazy emotional journey of like, one, expecting everybody around me, including my board, to judge the heck out of me for not being the stereotype of what a CEO should be, and accepting that CEOs can come in a lot of different shapes and flavors, and I didn't have to do exactly all of the things that my co-founder was doing, because every CEO has strengths. You know, they're shaped like a...
Most CEOs have strengths.
And when you're the CEO, the company will mold itself around you. And if you lean into that process, you can make your life a lot better. And you can work on the things that you want to work on, that you're good at working on, and still kind of drive the vision and lead the team while having a life that doesn't make you hate yourself. You know, like Quinn said, you can keep coding every day if you want to. If you don't want to do that, if you want to go out and give talks, if you want to be super operational, there's like just so many different flavors for like what are the things that give you energy. And I'm realizing that I had permission to just like take things that I wanted and then just like be like, I don't want to deal with that, and like let's hire it out. And also to like not have to change my personality. You know, I'm an introvert, and I tend to listen more than I speak, and that's okay. It means that when I do speak, people listen, and there's more than one way to go out and share a message, and you don't have to be an extrovert. Just because like 7 out of 10 CEOs out of there are extroverts doesn't mean that's the only way to be.
Yeah. Everybody always thinks that I'm the extrovert and Christina's the introvert, maybe because she's Asian, I don't know, but it's exactly the other way around. She is shutting the bars down every night at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. and offsites, and I'm hiding in the bathroom every hour or two. I love what you said. Ultimately, the only thing that really matters is succeeding. You have to, like that, even investors, if what you're doing is working, nobody wants to fuck with it. Right? Now, as soon as you start not succeeding, everybody's going to have their opinions and they might be forced upon you. But like ultimately, how you get there, ethics matter, blah, blah, blah. But like how you get there, it's more important that you find out a way to make it work. Make it work. And if you can figure out how to make it work, people really aren't going to want to mess with it.
Yeah, and I think like a real important key of sustaining yourself is having things that you do every day give you energy. You have to enjoy what you're doing every day. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to do it for more than some amount of time. If you're kicking yourself and managing yourself and saying like, I have to do X, Y, and Z, eventually you're going to hit a wall, and maybe you keep it all inside until then, but like you're going to explode, and it's not going to be something that you're going to be able to keep doing.
Whenever people ask what it takes to succeed in startups, I'm like, pain tolerance. Seriously, you should have a very high pain tolerance. But also, there comes a point where that does not serve you. And I think that I hated every day that I was a CEO. Like, I hated it. And I didn't even realize how much I hated it until I was a year or two on the other side of having been it. And I was like, oh yeah, that was a terrible 3-year-long stretch of my life. And it's so much better now. And so I don't know, it's like what gets you here doesn't always get you there, you know?
For the people who are here because they're thinking about quitting their jobs and they want to know, do they have what it takes to be a founder? What advice do you have?
Can you find joy in suffering?
I do actually agree with that a lot. For me, though,
Seriously.
it's not that I find joy in it, it's that I forget. I just have like a really terrible memory. Like, that was fucking yesterday. I went to bed and now it's gone.
No, but seriously, I mean, I have always felt like, I don't even know if people are like, are you happy? What does happy even mean? If I feel like I'm working on something that is worth doing, I can push through a lot. And if I feel like what I'm doing is not worth doing, I have no tolerance for it. So I would rather be kind of unhappy for a few years in the service of something that feels like it needs to happen, you know? And I think if you feel that same way about something, you should probably go build that thing.
I think it's actually okay to not be like 100% sure that you were destined to be a founder and to build something great, and you have like the clear vision that you know exactly what you want to build.
Oh, that's all retconning.
Yeah, all those stories you hear are like the super filtered version. The actual journey is super messy, and in order to start building, you have to have like the first thing that you're going to build, but you don't have to know what it's going to turn into. It's a really winding and twisting journey, and I think you have to have like some tolerance for risk. You know, you're not going to be making like a Google salary for potentially years, and it has to be something that like you feel okay with kind of like walking away from like this sort of like very known outcome. I think you have to really thrive in a world with a lot of uncertainty in it. And you're going to grow as a part of this. And the most important thing is to take the first step and to have at least some amount of time where, you know, you can do that in your life and you can pay your rent and get food and stuff like that, because you might not have any money at first. But other than that, you know, you take things year by year, day by day, month by month, and you don't have to have it all figured out at first.
It is very messy. That's true. And honestly, what works for me doesn't have to work for you. Like, there's as many answers as there are people in this room. Ultimately, so much of it is opportunism. I did it because I got the opportunity, which is something I think we would be all well served to acknowledge. It's just how incredibly lucky we are to get the opportunity to do it. I am deeply motivated just in part by understanding how incredibly unlikely it is that someone like me is here with the chance to do something like this. It's just like the mind boggles. Nobody else I grew up with even made it out of Idaho. And I can't believe I got the chance to do it. I'm grateful for it. I think I've paid those investors back fairly well, but I'm just grateful for the chance to do something that brings me joy, you know? And I think reminding myself how lucky I am to be here is a way of offsetting all of the heaviness that you sometimes walk around with the expectations and the fact that you're responsible for so many people's livelihoods.
You will learn more in a couple years of trying to build your own business and get something off the ground than you would in a decade of working a structured corporate job. And whenever I find an opportunity that I end up going into and looking back and feeling like, yeah, that was the right next step for me, I usually feel two things, actually. One is like this like magnetic like pull of attraction, but I usually also like feel really scared too. And when I took this CEO job, moving from like my comfort zone, which is kind of being the technical leader, I felt both of those things in almost like equal parts of like, I really want to do this because I don't really know why, but like it just feels like it would be good for me. But I also just felt terrified. And it's okay for that terror and that fear to be present. You don't have to make it go away. You just have to take the next step forward.
True fact. I don't know if any of you have ADHD, but panic helps you focus, which explains so much of my life.
I hate to cut it off there, but the next panel is also awesome. You guys are so great. Charity, Christine, thank you so much for sharing all of this today. Give it up for her.